Images of Heaven from Peter Godwin, he of Metro and his work as a solo artist. Peter has a new single and more new music to come, and I'm happy to have him back with us on Revenge of the 80s Radio. Welcome once again to the show, Peter.
Hey, it's good to be here, Chris. And even though, I'm here only virtually because we live in days of distancing.
Yeah.
And anyway, you live in New York and I'm in the south of France, so there you go.
That's a lot of distance.
I think I've got the better of the deal right now.
Yeah, it's a little more than 6 feet apart. One important thing, though, for all of us to remember, you gotta respect a guy who David Bowie chooses to cover.
Well, yeah, it's always nice when someone whose music you respect and enjoy, love, happens to like something of yours. And that was, whenever people talk to me about that, what I share is that was actually my main. It wasn't anything else. I just thought, oh, that's great. The guy I like a lot of things he's done, and I could always tell with Bowie that we actually like a lot of the same things. So there is a kind of affinity. And I'll tell you some other thing, which I don't think I've ever actually said in interview before. It came out when I was replying to somebody in Facebook, but I remember somebody was asking me, had I ever met him? I said, yes, I did. I met him once. I met him at a nightclub called The Embassy, a very well-known nightclub in London. It goes all the way back to the 30s. But I met him in the 70s. I met him the summer that my first record was released by chance. And I was introduced to him by Bianca Jagger, Mick Jagger's ex, who I happen to know, and that's another story. We won't go into that. But she said, this is... And he asked me, being a nice guy, what do you do? And I said, I do what you do. A record could just come out, Now, I have no idea at all. It occurred to me when I told somebody that it is possible that he thought, he's a cool guy or something. I don't know. I'll go, because I told him the band was called Metro. So it's just possible. Because I do know from a later BBC Radio 1 interview he did, when Let's Dance came out, I know that he bought the album because he said so, and that he actually liked a lot of other tracks on the album. So something made him go and get that album, and nobody knew anything about Metro. It was our first album. Something, and it might have been the fact we met. It's possible. And we didn't, because it was like, we talked for hours or anything, I just said hello and we talked a little bit and that was that, But there you go.
Peter, you're introducing a new track. It's called You.
It's called You! Exclamation mark.
Yes, I need to. It's called You. There we go.
It's you. It's emphatic. It's you. Because it's a guy. Well, in a funny. I think in terms of style and feel, it's me going back to my roots, and we were talking about Bowie for a minute, and I think it's got a bit of the David Bowie swagger, if I can put it that way. And it's kind of high romance. It's intense. It's about the paradox, all the paradoxes of romantic love. But that's to discover. That's when you hear it, you'll get it, I hope. It's a theme of mine in my work. And it's something that I did with a great producer and guitar player that I got friends with as I moved to France. His name is Garbo-Dog. And Garbo was an artist himself in a band in the 80s in France. And in fact, when I did the WFS, which is a new way of what happens in Europe, and a lot of people came, like 30,000 people, 2018. And I went there and I played a big show, and he did go with me. We did it kind of with electronics and guitars. I love his guitar playing. He's kind of like my Mick Ronson come George Martin. We've got a real chemistry. You'll hear that on You when you go to download it or stream it, which anybody out there listening, go do it, You won't regret it.
This is the first new single from you in quite a while, Peter. Has this been in the works for a long time, or is this a product of the coronavirus confinements?
Actually, not at all. This is not a product of that. But I would say although it's about the torture of love, it's very kind of, it's got a lot of good energy. And I've been having, since I started posting it on social media and stuff, I've been having some fantastic reactions to it. I've got to say, like, people really seem to love it. It's got a kind of joy, which I think we need in dark days. These dark, dangerous days with all sorts of things that we talk about, to upset us. And as well, possibility of some areas of hope for better things beyond just getting past this global disaster. But the song, always need music. And I actually hesitated because I'd even shot the video just before we went to confinement. I'd had the song for a couple of years. I'd recorded it, and I'd met a dancer who I wanted to be principal in the video because I thought she was amazing, and a kind of, whatever you want to call it, modern dancer. And I waited for her to come off a world tour that was taking months, going all over the world on a boat, and to be in my video. And she is fantastic. Her name is Virginie Roux, and you will see about her when I put the video up. The video will come in a couple of weeks, something like that, very soon. And so, in answer to your question, it's not a response. It's not a response to the coronavirus, but it's very, I think, appropriate in a way for these times, because I think music, it's such a mystery, music. What makes it beautiful, why it touches us. But we need stuff like that when things like this are going on, and I think it really it helped, because I actually had a dilemma. That's what I'm reading my words here, because I wanted to say one thing. At the beginning, it was all about the people dying out there, right? And I actually thought to myself, is it inappropriate for me to put out my new single when there are people dying, But then, of course, there are people dying, of wars and starvation and terrible things all the time. This is just a particular event, And we always need music. I just decided, people need to smile, and music lifts us up, and put it out. But that's the relationship, I guess, what's going on in the world. Yeah.
So it came just in time, Peter.
It came just in time.
Peter Godwin is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. The new single is You. Actually, it's You ! So it's You. It's very
You.
It's very Metro-esque, guitar-oriented. The vocals, though, were quite deeper than in the tracks that you're known for both with that band and solo. Was it more of a throwback to Metro, or was it just something you figured, hey, let's just do this again anyway?
Honestly, this may sound like hard to believe, but I've always made music that I felt like making at the time. And when I started with Metro, and then when I went solo, and in both cases, so the first Metro album, let's say, the solo single was actually, the first one I recorded was the one with Mature, Talk Songs for the Heroine. In both cases, I had this prime thing, my passion, if you like, was to try and do something a bit different, something original to my ears, to my soul, something that I felt. I wasn't copying something or following a fashion or trying to be like somebody else. I was just doing what I felt. So it's a strange thing, but I never calculated why the music is the way it is. So I know that, for example, think of me in connection with having, how can I say it, grown up with, listened to in club, Images of Heaven, Babies in the Mountains, and they relate it to, like I completely understand, to a time in their life when that was their soundtrack and it was exciting to them. It was a style of music coming out of Britain, it seemed, but also, of course, coming out of Europe, where there were things like synthesizers used, let's say. But I only used synthesizers, and even on those tracks I just mentioned, Heaven actually has lots of guitar on it. People think it's synthesizer, but it's treated guitars, because all I was interested in, and the same in Metro, the other hand, you're right, it was all guitars, and there was Mini Moog on it that I played on a couple of places, but mainly for effects. It was all guitars. But Pieces of Heaven also has like guitars on it. A lot of the lines that people think are treated guitars. I just wanted to make it please me. And of course, like a lot of people, those synthesizer sounds that came along in the early 80s, the Roland sounds, things like that, the Jupiter series and that, a lot of people used the same ones because they were exciting. It was a different feeling, a different kind of futurism, modernism. Of course, we weren't the first people to use synthesizers that generation. There'd been Kraftwerk in Germany and, people before us. But it was combined with British sensibility, not only, but, a lot of that obviously came out of Britain. And I was just using, since I'm not, some people that look back on the period or came to it in the 90s or even yesterday, they have an attachment to synth music, or they want to be part of, synth music, just like heavy metal people. There are certain rules and codes. Hip hop, there are codes. But I'm more like the kind of Bowie approach in the sense that I don't have any rules, really.
Yeah, no rules. That's the best way to do it. Do it on your own terms, Peter.
Well, yeah, I think if things get more interesting that way, you experiment, and suddenly something that would otherwise happens. It's a bit like you. I think it's people I know like music with synthesizer. I love this track. It doesn't have to have a synthesizer for them to like it. Of course not.
That's
Most
right.
people who are maybe focused on a particular genre, you'd be surprised. When I played the W-Fest, it was new wave 80s, and with a wide range of very famous 80s acts. Played very different music, some of them, but they all were in that period. And then there was a stage for dark wave, which is, and I had these people coming up to me from the dark wave scene, which is like almost industrial and very different. They're all like saying, "Oh God, I love Images of Heaven." They were all turned out to be fans of something in effect quite different from what they do. So, you know what people are going to enjoy. So you do what you enjoy, right?
Exactly. You're also releasing more new cuts, Peter.
Yeah, I've got more to come. I've got this plan. You see, starting with you, and I just want to get everybody turned on, Spotifying it, downloading it, sharing it. I want to get it heard. And then I'm going to follow it up with this track called Fatal Smile. Fatal Smile is not written by me. So this is only the second time in my life, actually, that I sung a song I didn't write. The first time was on the Correspondence album. George Kianis was producing it, great artist, and from Sailor and Data and other bands. And he was producing it, and he had this song on one of his albums called Over 21, and I covered that. This is the first time since then I've sung another person's song. It's not it's not a cover in that sense, an interpretation. My friend Garbo-Dog has recorded it himself, but I've done this version and with him. So it's the same kind of production approach, I guess, to you. There's continuity there, and it's a song that I love. You'll wait and see what it's like. I think it's very cool. I like it. We're just mixing it now, just getting the mix right, and we'll probably do a video for that as soon as we can get a world situation where such things are possible, and we can go where we want to go, But it won't be that long. And we may not wait for a video. We may put it out and then put out the video later. And if you like, I can talk about a couple of other things I've got coming up.
Of course, let's do that. Peter Godwin is with me on Revenge of the 80s Radio. We're going to play his newest track, You, in just a little while. But yes, you were invited to collaborate on a rather interesting project, a combined CD and book, I understand?
Yeah, this came through, it's like everything in life. Most of maybe not everything, but so many things in life, twists of fate. Like I said, in my little story about it might have been the twist of fate of me in a nightclub that got me Criminal World covered, who knows. And this twist of fate was that I was in a dance place where I was dancing Argentine tango, and a girl dancer I know introduced me to a guy who happened to think that the first Met album was his favorite album when he was, 14 or 15 years old. And he knows that he's a musician himself, Claudio Citarella. and it's label effectively that's putting out these digitally, and it's Imago for this part of his label. We're calling it Imago Godwin Records. So Claudio introduced me to some friends of his that have been doing a project for I think 3 years. The project is that there's this novelist, Orlando Nazareno, and he has quite a successful book series that happen in and around Naples and southern Italy, and they describe very well the sort of atmosphere of that part, and they're quite. And he's putting out a new one. I think it would be in English. I think it's called Medusa. And with it, they've done this thing where they give away the first few. I think it's first 300 copies that are sold, because he sells thousands. They give away a CD of music, and it's like specifically, it's more of an artistic enterprise. It's more sort of freestyle than that. It's but it's made by this called Vanni Mieli, and mostly it's instrumental. But he does invite all kinds of international artists to collaborate in different ways. Some people play some guitar over. Anyway, basically, I was offered the album, 6 tracks at a very early stage, sort of a bit of music, chords and groove and things, but they had a feel, and I was just told, because Vanni happens to like my music and everything, if I had any ideas, go ahead, So what I basically did was I wrote songs over the top of 2 of them I really liked, and one is called Laplace, or in fact, it's got a slightly different title for the book, but we won't go to that. Laplace, but in French, it's half French and it's half English. It just seemed right. I can't explain it. One is called Mirage, and they will come out not just on the CD. They will go out as a global digital release as well, and I will kind of present those as collaborations. But it's Vanni Mieli featuring Peter Godwin. But just like when people like Bowie collaborated, it's very much me as well. Only I didn't, I wasn't in the room for all the mixing and everything. I wasn't all hands on, because it was, I gave him the respect that it was his record, but I put in all my heart and soul into it, and that's what I did. And when I first sent him my melody and my singing over what became La Plage, he said it was exactly what he was imagining, which is quite amazing. We obviously have some chemistry there. The Mirage one had a sort of Arabic flavor, so I wrote something in English. I sung something in English, which is a bit fun to be heard, to be listened to later. And this will come out sort of in its own time frame, but I think actually quite soon. But all of this stuff, I'm going to put it out there on social media. I'm basically on Facebook, but friends of mine are on other things, and they share it. It won't be a secret. It will be.
No, you have to promote it.
It will be there to enjoy.
Has to be promoted.
Well, otherwise who's going to hear it? Promote it. You just basically nowadays you don't really think about money with music, because it's a bit, unless you're talking about huge numbers, huge streams, huge downloads, the money's not the thing. But with me, the money never was the thing. I never dreamt I would make a living out of music. I managed to do it all my life. And I have, just about, but always the motivation was the dream was just to connect with people's hearts and minds, and have that exchange, just like music connects with me, to be in that process and touch people. It's, I think, quite a human thing really to want to do. People do it in different ways, and my way was music. And so what matters most to me when I put out You, or for any of these tracks we've discussed, is that we'll get to hear it and get an emotion, get a reaction. They don't have to like it, nobody likes everything. Nobody's going to like everything I do. But I just want to reach people with it. And I figure, you reach enough people, you'll find your audience, And the funny thing is, over the years, some things take years to be discovered, or they get discovered by new generations. And it was the same with me when I was young. I discovered things that were not my generation, And it happens with me. I get 16-year-olds who discovered, I'm not joking, that's literally true. Many times I've had 16, 17-year-olds who just discovered the first Metro album that is, 40 years ago. You know?
Yeah, that happens, especially with the internet and YouTube, of course. You have a lot of old Metro stuff on YouTube, so kids will flip around and say, hey, wait a minute, what's this? I got to play this again. And they show their friends, and all of a sudden, hey, Peter, we're 14, 15, 16 years old and just discovering your music. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah, this is actually one of the huge upsides of the digital age and what's happening and streaming and all those things. Everything that has, for some people, a downside always has an upside, you know. And the upside is that the kids coming through, they're not just being told what to listen to by tastemakers and a selection of record labels and certain journalists. And, you know, it used to be kind of so guided, and now it's so free. And I met people, I remember seeing when there's that thing, you know, that a lot of people were using Last FM, I think, you know, and making up their own playlists. And when I first got Facebook in 2009, I had Garbo-Dog village in Siberia in Russia. And, you know, she was like a fan of all my stuff. She was 16 years old. She knew all my solo stuff and all of that, knew the words, everything. Russian 16-year-old living in a little village in Siberia. And then I had a look at her. She said she had a playlist on Last FM. And then when I looked at her playlist, it was wonderful because it was a complete mixture of all sorts of music, including music that was made, you know, that year. But that's a fantastic thing about this age we live in, you know, that people are exposed through things like YouTube and streaming to so much music that might not find otherwise, you know.
Peter Godwin, thank you very much for coming on with us once again here on Revenge of the 80s Radio.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. It always is. And I hope your listeners enjoy going on and on about this and that. But, you know, I like a good conversation. You can tell, can't you?
Same here. And that's what we're all about here on Revenge of the 80s Radio. But we're also all about the music. So let's play the new single from you, Peter Godwin. One of quite a few to come. You!